Hi everyone, I'm Joe. Today it's time for me to do a book review of Good Omens, written by Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. This is a fantasy novel first published in 1990. It has rose to rather high prominence in the last few years due to the fact that this was made into a television miniseries by Amazon, which has proved very popular with fans. And for the record, it has proven very popular with me too, because the miniseries, whilst obviously you had to diverge and go a little bit away from the plot of the book, it was overall remarkably faithful, hit all the major points, and certainly developed the characters well, and frankly was a good, faithful adaptation overall. And I would highly recommend it. If you've got the opportunity to watch the miniseries and haven't read the book yet, don't feel bad to watch the miniseries, because whilst I would prefer the book personally, the miniseries is good. Okay. Anyway, on to the book and a synopsis of that. So the book starts off with a night that should be dark and stormy, because it just so happens that the Antichrist, who will herald the end of the world and the final war between heaven and hell, is being born. However, the weather fails to be dramatic enough, and it's just a fairly dull, overcast day instead. This is not a particularly auspicious start for the Antichrist, but that's fine. The Antichrist is born, and there are two people, let's say, who are meant to be there when the Antichrist is born, and that is the angel Aziphael and the demon Crowley. Despite the fact that they are obviously working on different sides, one being angel, the other being a demon, heaven and hell, they've actually become somewhat of a friends over the thousands of years that there is still on Earth, because frankly, when you live among mortals obviously being short-lived and they're technically immortal, then who else can you talk to reliably and understand things with, apart from the person who also happens to be around for multiple thousands of years, even though they may be on the so-called opposite sides. Actually, there's a lot in common, because you're both trying to go for the same goals, albeit one of them is for good, one of them is for bad, but it's just a matter of, frankly, sides really. The actual overall feel of this long game played by heaven and hell is still the same. So they get on, and they're meant to be there for the Antichrist. But let's just say, this is a humorous fantasy book, so obviously things do not go exactly according to plan. Mainly because the Antichrist gets, let's say, misplaced. How you misplace an Antichrist is challenging and frankly ridiculous as far as the plotline is concerned, but fun and truly enjoyable to read about. This is bad news for Aziphael and especially Crowley, because obviously he's been threatened with an eternity of torment in hell, which is really didn't want to do. So they have to figure out what's gone wrong, how to solve it, how to bring about Armageddon, but they also don't want Armageddon to happen, because they actually enjoy living among humans and on Earth, because frankly they find it far more interesting. Heaven and hell respectively are fairly boring. As far as Aziphael is concerned, heaven is almost too good, it's too calm and safe, and obviously the opposite for hell. Hell's too unstable, and the demons are not that imaginative. There's no sort of fun to be had there, it's all about torturing souls forever. And Crowley's not finds that particularly enjoyable. He prefers to have a good meal and do something fun out and about socially. So they may have become a bit overly humanised actually, which is quite something to say about an angel and a demon. So this leads to all sorts of antics involving, of course, the Antichrist does appear in a very specific form and has an interesting role. You have a pair of witchfinders, the last witchfinders, who obviously want to kill the Antichrist, and obviously against Aziphael and Crowley due to not understanding them. You have the nice and accurate Prophecies of Agnes Nutter, which is a prophecy book about the future, which seems to be remarkably accurate, although you only realise it's accurate once things have actually happened, because it's so oddly worded that nobody quite ever understands it. And indeed, the last surviving descendant of Agnes Nutter, Anathema, she's also on a interesting quest, let's say, in this novel as well. So you've got all these multiple people at cross purposes, chaos ensues, madness ensues, and also fun ensues. For the reader anyway, not necessarily for everybody involved. And it's really enjoyable and fun, and I would recommend this plot for just, if you like a plot that's just frantic, mad, and just a distraction from other heavier books, or indeed heavier things in life, this could well be a good choice. Because one of the things that makes this book mad and frantic is the characters, because they are so varied and so wide-ranging psychology that you can't help but enjoy this book. You've got obviously the Antichrist, who is a interesting character. I don't want to say too much about the Antichrist or even his name. For the record, the Antichrist's name is not Damien, despite certain suggestions by a nun, because of course this book does make reference to the original The Omen movie and to rather comedic effect. And the Antichrist is an interesting character, let's say, and so are his friends and such. I don't want to say too much because was I to me, it's an obvious plot line very early on. I still don't want to spoil it. And the two main characters really are Aziraphale and Crowley, an angel and a demon that have lived so long on Earth that they actually like humans now, and are frankly amazed by them, because for instance, as far as Crowley is concerned, he thinks that actually demons are outclassed by humans, because he's like, well, there's nothing that demons can do to humans that humans don't do with more enthusiasm to each other, and often far more effectively and far more creative. So we are a far more destructive race to each other than demons can ever hope to be. Likewise, Aziraphale often gets amazed by why is heaven trying to get involved in this, when frankly, as far as that's concerned, yes, humanity is a bit of a mess, but it does have redeeming qualities, although he is often doubtful whether humanity should even survive. So it's almost, in certain respects, he understands where Crowley is coming from. So their relationship, which is the core relationship of the whole book, is a really interesting one, and one that obviously in the television miniseries, for instance, those two parts are played by David Tennant and Michael Sheen respectively. That is a fantastic relationship that's developed extremely well, and actually the miniseries displays it really. I love that relationship in the miniseries. In the book, it's also developed extremely well in a less obvious way, I would say. Obviously they have to be slightly more subtle in the book, because they've got the visuals to back it up. But they are a fantastic pair of characters, and ones that get on well and interact with all the others, like Sergeant Shadwell and Newton Pulsifier, who Sergeant Shadwell is the old and sort of like the last remaining Witchfinder. Newton Pulsifier is the new sort of apprentice who has only just joined, and they together, are meant to be fighting the forces of evil. Obviously the Antichrist is literally the ultimate evil, so they want to kill the Antichrist in theory. I mean, Sergeant Shadwell is an eccentric, frankly, in almost every sense of the word. So Newton is a innocent, frankly. He doesn't really know too much about what's going on, and he wanders around quite, unknown, and gets involved in things without actually realising it. And then you have certain other interesting characters thrown into the mix, like Anathema Device, who is the descendant of Agnes Nutter, the witch who wrote the prophecy book. She is an interesting character. She interacts with all the others. I mean, all characters ultimately will end up interacting. And as well, of course, I can't forget to say that you meet the four horsemen of the apocalypse. You have, of course, death. This is not the death that is in the Discworld, although it has certain little reminiscences of that. You have famine, you have war, and you don't have pestilence now. Pestilence retired due to complaining about penicillin. You now have pollution. So the four horsemen of the apocalypse, or four bikers of the apocalypse now, because they are basically driving around in the book, waiting for the end of time, waiting for the Antichrist, and they're basically Hell's Angels. Almost literally Hell's Angels, with the levers, and yeah, their, last ride of the apocalypse is iconic. Short, iconic. And this creates a phenomenal situation, and indeed a phenomenal environment, because the world that this book inhabits is, of course, Earth. But it's Earth with, as often T. Pratchett does with the Discworld novels and Gaiman does, it's what you think you know, but everything's just turned at a slightly odd angle. It's not turned around 180 degrees, you're not looking at things in reverse. It's just like slightly turn them at some strange angle that you're not expecting. So you think you know it, and it's like, oh, no, it's not quite that. Nothing about the world and indeed the characters is quite as you expect. You think, you'll think, oh yes, this environment is going to be like this because it's that part of the UK. I mean, it is UK based, by the way. And then you realise, actually, not entirely. It's a little bit alternative than that. The environments are varied. What do you think? Oh yes, it's England. It's kind of not in a way. It's England, but with a stereotype and ramped up to a silly level, but not at the angle you expect. So it's fun and enjoyable and developed well. And finally, I'm going to talk about the ideas and themes in the book, because whilst it might sound as though this is more of a sort of fun adventure or chaotic sort of comedic novel, you might think that there's not as much, deeper meanings and deeper sort of ideas or themes in it. And in a sense, that's not entirely incorrect. It is a very much a romp through this environment with a great cast of characters and a really fun and convoluted and silly plot. I'm not going to do all that. However, there is more to it than that, and there is more deeper meaning to it than that. Because of course, this isn't just about the idea of heaven versus hell, good versus evil, or and black versus white. Because of course, because of the two characters of Aziraphale and Crowley, they've been together, sort of on opposing sides for years. It's blatantly not a case of just black and white, but there is a lot more shades of grey, a lot more than 50 in fact, and they are all somewhere in the middle. And indeed, the blatant message is that all of humanity and the whole planet is a grey zone. There is no pure black or pure white. There is no pure evil. I mean, yes, there are occasionally exceptions, but it's extremely rare. Likewise, pure white zones or pure, good. Again, extremely rare. There are almost no characters, nobody that's ever been alive in history that's actually been that, sort of perfectly aligned one way or the other. Most people are grey, they are in the middle, they are capable, and indeed, that's what the book's talked about. As a species, we are capable of the greatest evil and the greatest sort of nastiness towards one another, and frankly, we, as you can see in the world right now that we live in, we seem to enjoy being frankly unpleasant to one another and trying to murder each other and inflict a lot of pain and suffering on each other. But we're also capable of the greatest good and the greatest positive steps that you can imagine as well. It's just sometimes, like at the moment, we have not got the balance correctly. It's more negative than positive at the moment. We seem to enjoy hurting each other more and hurting the planet more than we do with actually trying to reinforce each other, improve ourselves and each other, and frankly improve the planet. At the moment, it's on a downward spiral, but personally, I'm an optimist, and indeed, that's why the book works, I should say, because this book, whilst it has elements of, yes, there are negative things in the world and need things to be pessimistic about. If you're an optimist, which I definitely am, if you didn't know, then there are things to be positive about and things to think, yes, whilst everything may be going basically up in flames, I mean, it feels like the world's on fire now, things can and will improve. It's not easy, and frankly, you have to walk through fire and a lot of unpleasantness to get there, but we will get there. It's just very difficult, and we just need people that are capable and culpable to, lead countries and nations to work together and to improve matters. So there is far more to it than that. It's quite deeply political at heart, while still being very silly and madcap and such, obviously. And I would say it really is quite a powerful book, actually. I mean, yes, it's fun, and I was laughing at multiple parts throughout the book, without fail. But it does also make you think about the world we live in and about the way things could be if we can stop basically thinking only of ourselves and in general, and actually try to improve things. We could live in a much improved world and things could be, better, whatever better happens to mean for each individual. And there are other little meanings as well and little themes as well, but I'm not going to talk about them here because I think it's worthwhile each person, finding and discovering what this book means to them. To me, this book means a lot because it was not the first book by Pratchett I ever read, although it is the first by Neil Gaiman. I'm not a fan. First in this, for the record, I much prefer obviously Pratchett over Neil Gaiman. Neil Gaiman by himself doesn't quite work as well as Pratchett by himself. Unsurprisingly, if you've seen my recent videos, you'll gather that. And this is a book that I would highly recommend to fans of either author, both authors, and to people that want a alternative book and a slightly madcap book in between other books, or indeed just a distraction from the various problematic situations that are going on in the UK at this very moment. So overall, a well written book that's madcap and frantic, great characters, a fun plot line, and truly enjoyable. And the mini-series that they made, I would also recommend because that was, frankly, as I said, alternative from the plot line of this to a degree, but certainly faithful to the characters, and it did have the right feel to it, which to me is the most important thing. And with that said, that is actually it for this review. So if you read Good Omens, or indeed watched Good Omen, then you can leave a comment and we can have a talk about it. If you want to know more about the book, then again leave a comment. I will answer to the best of my knowledge. For the record, I tend to think my knowledge of this book is pretty deep overall because I've actually read it multiple dozens of times over the years. So hopefully, I say that and then somebody asks me a question that I then don't know the answer of. Probably. Which would be appropriate for this book, because it's that kind of book that does, say something and then it breaks it in some other way. That said, that is it. So I will link this book, this description, the book on Goodreads, I should say, in the description box below, along with all my social media. And with that said, that is it for this video. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you another day. Bye for now.